My phone rang when I was relaxing on my sofa and browsing Netflix on my day off. The screen showed Mom's name. I took a time to think before responding. "Hey, Ruby, how are you doing?" When Mom desired anything, she always said it in a sweet, implying tone. "I'm doing ok, simply unwinding. What's going on?" Already preparing myself, I asked. Her words, "Well, I need to ask you for a small favor," confirmed what I had suspected. "Your brother left his flat not long ago. He's experiencing some short-term financial difficulties when his lease expired." I let out a sigh. Jake had never really gotten his act together and was 26 years old, 4 years younger than me. He changed jobs and relationships frequently, always coming up with an explanation for why things didn't work out. "Mom, where is this going?" Even though I already knew, I asked. Her voice was growing louder as she stated, "Well, you have that empty flat from your divorce with Mark. Jake has to find a place to stay while he recovers." I reasoned that he could be able to remain there for a short while until he resolved the situation. I inhaled deeply and closed my eyes. My financial safety net was that flat. I kept the flat we had purchased together as part of the settlement when I got divorced 3 years ago. After 2 years, I took out a large mortgage to buy myself a larger home in a better area. In order to help pay my mortgage, I intended to rent out the previous flat. I reminded her, "Mom, I was planning to rent that place out. I need the rental income to help with my mortgage." "I understand, my love, but we're talking about family here. Jake is in dire need of assistance right now. He's having trouble, whereas you're doing a fantastic job at your marketing job. It would only last for a short time." Jake used the word temporary, and I understood what that meant. Additionally, I was aware that if I didn't, Mom would bring up this topic at every family get-together for the next 10 years, subtly implying that I had abandoned my brother while he was in need. I responded, "Fine," following a protracted silence. "He can stay there temporarily, but I mean temporarily, Mom." "Many thanks. Jake will be really appreciative. I'll inform him immediately." She hung up before I could add any more requirements. I let out a loud moan and tossed my phone into the cushion next me on the couch. What a waste of my rental revenue. I met Jake and his few possessions in the old flat a week later. He appeared just as laid back and carefree as I had anticipated, despite the fact that he was effectively homeless and unemployed. "Hey, sis, I appreciate this." He gave me a short embrace and remarked, "You're a lifesaver." He had the scent of someone who had just lit a cigarette. Unlocking the door, I said, "Yeah, well, like I told Mom, this is temporary," and entered. There was only the little furnishings I had left behind, and the apartment seemed tidy and deserted. "I need to rent this place out eventually." Of course," Jake said, looking around. "I'll be out of your hair in no time. Just need to get my next gig lined up, you know. Got some promising leads already." I'd heard that before. "Jake, I need you to follow some rules while you're here." He turned to me with a slightly annoyed expression, but quickly masked it. "Sure, shoot." "First, no moving anyone else in without my permission. Second, clean up after yourself. This place needs to stay in good condition. Third, no loud parties. The neighbors already know me, and I don't want complaints. Fourth, no pets without asking me first." Jake held up his hands. "Totally reasonable. I promise I'll be the perfect tenant. You won't even know I'm here." For the first few weeks, I was vigilant. I'd stopped by after work unannounced, and to my surprise, Jake seemed to be keeping his promises. The apartment was reasonably clean. No strange people were living there, and he even cooked dinner for me a few times when I came over. "See, I told you I'd grown up," he said one evening as we ate pasta he prepared. "I'm impressed," I admitted. Maybe Mom was right for once. When I went to my parents' house for our traditional Saturday dinners, they were full of praise. "It's so good to see you two getting along," Mom said, serving meatloaf. "Family should always help family. I'm proud of you, Ruby." Dad nodded in agreement. Jake says you've been really supportive. That's what siblings are for. I felt a warm glow of approval I hadn't felt from them in years. Maybe this wasn't such a bad situation after all. After about 2 months, I relaxed my surveillance. Work got busier, and I was dating someone new. I called Jake occasionally to check in, but I stopped dropping by unannounced. "Everything good over there?" I asked. "Yep, all good. Place is clean. Bills are paid. No wild parties," he'd always respond cheerfully. I should have known it was too good to be true. One Tuesday evening, I suddenly remembered I'd left some important documents in the filing cabinet in the spare bedroom of the apartment. I needed them for a meeting the next day, so I drove over without calling first. When I got to the apartment, I could hear music blasting from inside. I rang the doorbell, but no one answered. After trying a couple more times, I used my key to let myself in. The sight that greeted me stopped me in my tracks. A young woman I'd never seen before was dancing around my living room, wearing nothing but one of Jake's t-shirts. When she saw me, her eyes widened in shock, then narrowed in anger. "What the hell? Who are you, and why are you breaking into our apartment?" she yelled over the music. "Our apartment?" I was too stunned to respond immediately. "Hello, I'm talking to you. You can't just walk into someone's home with a key," she continued, turning down the music with a remote. Before I could answer, Jake came rushing out of the bedroom wearing only boxers. His face fell when he saw me. "Ruby, I didn't know you were coming by," he stammered. "Clearly," I said, finding my voice. "Who is this?" The girl crossed her arms. "I should be asking who you are." "I'm Ruby. I own this apartment." I turned to Jake. "Care to explain?" "This is Amber," Jake said, moving between us. "My girlfriend. She needed a place to stay." "And you moved her in without asking me," I finished for him, even though the first rule was not to move anyone in without my permission. Amber rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, are you serious right now? We're adults. Jake doesn't need your permission for who stays in his apartment." "It's not his apartment," I said firmly. "It's mine." "Ruby, come on," Jake whined, putting on his best pleading face, the same one he'd been using since we were kids. "I love her. We're really serious about each other. I was going to tell you, but I knew you'd get all uptight about it." I looked between them. Jake was giving me puppy dog eyes while Amber was staring at me with open hostility. "How long has she been living here?" I asked. "About a month," Jake admitted. A month. A whole month, and he hadn't bothered to mention it. I took a deep breath and counted to 10 in my head. "Fine," I said finally. "She can stay too. But the other rules still apply. Keep the place clean. No parties. No pets without asking." Jake's face broke into a huge smile, and he hugged me. "You're the best. I promise we'll follow all the other rules. You won't regret this." "I already do," I mumbled, but he didn't hear me. As I was gathering my documents and heading toward the door, Amber emerged from the bedroom. "So I'm allowed to stay. How generous of you," she said with a smirk. "Amber, be nice," Jake said weakly. "No, I'm serious." "Thank you, Ruby," she said, but her tone made it clear she wasn't thankful at all. "But next time, maybe knock before using your key. It's kind of invasive to just walk in." I opened my mouth to remind her whose name was on the deed, but decided it wasn't worth it. "Sure." As I reached for the door handle, Amber stepped in front of me and opened it. "Bye now," she said with a fake smile and practically slammed the door behind me. I stood in the hallway, stunned. Did that really just happen? Did my brother's girlfriend just kick me out of my own apartment? That Saturday, I went to my parents' house for dinner, still fuming about the encounter. "So I met Jake's girlfriend," I said as we ate. "Isn't she lovely?" Mom beamed. "Jake brought her over last week. Such a sweet girl." I nearly choked on my potatoes. Sweet? She was incredibly rude to me. I told them about finding Amber at the apartment and how she'd acted toward me. Mom waved her hand dismissively. You probably just caught her off guard and using your key without warning. That would startle anyone. It's my apartment, I said, feeling like a broken record, and they broke the rules we agreed on. Oh, Ruby, Mom sighed. You need to understand. Jake's building a serious relationship here. They want to create a home together. In my apartment, I emphasized. Can't you be happy for your brother? Dad asked. After your divorce, you should understand how important it is to find someone. That stung. They knew my ex-husband had cheated on me, yet somehow they were using my failed marriage to guilt me about Jake. This isn't about my divorce, I said. It's about Jake not respecting our agreement. Family is more important than rules, Mom said firmly. You have 2 apartments, Ruby. Your brother has none. You can afford to be generous. I gave up trying to make them understand and changed the subject. The following week, I got the utility bills for Jake's, my apartment. My jaw dropped when I saw the amounts, nearly double what they were before. I called Jake immediately. Hey, have you seen the utility bills? They're twice as high as they should be. What's going on? Well, he hesitated. Amber likes to take really long baths, like really long, and she says she needs light to see, so she keeps all the lights on. I closed my eyes and counted to 10. Jake, I'm paying those bills. I know, I'm sorry. I'll talk to her about it. Please do, I said. I can't afford these kinds of increases. I promise, sis. I'll handle it. I wanted to believe him, but a part of me knew better. 3 weeks later, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Patel, the elderly woman who lived across the hall from my apartment. Ms. Ruby, I am sorry to bother you, she said in her gentle accent, but there have been very loud parties in your apartment, many nights, very late, too much noise, too many people. I apologized profusely, promising to address the issue, even as anger bubbled inside me. First, the unauthorized roommate, then the bills, now parties. Jake had broken every single rule. The next day, I drove to the apartment after work. I knocked on the door, then rang the doorbell, but no one answered. I tried my key, but it wouldn't turn in the lock. I stared at the door in disbelief. They had changed the locks. They had changed the locks to my apartment. I was beyond furious now. I went down to my car and decided to wait. 2 hours later, Jake and Amber appeared, walking toward the building entrance. I followed them inside and up the elevator. When they reached the apartment door, I called out, Jake. He turned, his face dropping when he saw me. Amber looked annoyed. What are you doing here? She asked. We need to talk about why my key doesn't work anymore. I said nothing. Now Jake at least had the decency to look embarrassed. Ruby, I can explain. Let's talk inside. I insisted, pushing past Amber, who gave me a dirty look but stepped aside. Once inside, I noticed the apartment was messier than before. Empty beer bottles lined the kitchen counter, and the living room furniture had been rearranged. Why did you change the locks? I demanded. Before Jake could answer, Amber jumped in. I didn't like the idea of you being able to just walk in whenever you wanted. It's creepy. I turned to Jake. Did you agree to this? He looked at the floor, then nodded slightly. You know what? I've had enough, I said. Mrs. Patel called me yesterday. She says you've been having loud parties. That old bat needs to mind her own business, Amber muttered. The neighbors are my business, I said. And so are the utility bills, which have doubled since you moved in. Jake stepped forward. Ruby, can we talk about this later when everyone's calmer? No, we're talking about it now, I insisted. You've broken every single rule we agreed on. You moved someone in without asking. You're not keeping the place clean. You're having parties. And now you've changed the locks to my property without my permission. Amber rolled her eyes and went to a drawer, pulling out a folded piece of paper. Here. What's this? I asked, not taking it. It's a list of rules, she said, shoving it into my hands. If you want to visit your apartment, these are the conditions. I unfolded the paper, not believing what I was hearing. As I read through the list, my jaw dropped. The first rule stated I needed to give them at least 3 days' notice before visiting. The second said I couldn't come after 7:00 p.m. or before 10:00 a.m. The third forbidden topic was any discussion of bills. Rule 4 stated I needed to be quiet while visiting and not create drama. Rule 5 demanded I buy them new furniture since the current stuff was old and ugly. The list went on with increasingly ridiculous demands. I looked up from the paper to see Amber smirking and Jake looking uncomfortable. Something snapped inside me. A strange calm washed over me. You have 1 week to move out. Their smug expressions vanished. What? Jake sputtered. You can't kick us out, Amber shouted. We have rights. You're not on the lease. There is no lease. This is my property, and I'm telling you that you have 1 week to find somewhere else to live. Amber's face contorted with rage. She grabbed a vase from the bookshelf, a blue glass one I'd bought in Venice during my honeymoon.